I know there's a lot of new people here. Eh, Oh, thank you. I don't know how many of you have gone online and seen the CRFG Orange County chapters um, short films called Let's Find Out. So they're fantastic. Sometimes it's visiting someone's garden. There was one in 2023. I think it's number 33. And Khaled went to Florida with a group of other people from the chapter, and they met up with Zill's nursery and learned about a lot of different varieties. They have a lot of good information about mangoes on there. So tonight we've got two great experts in mangoes. We have our past chair, and that's Khaled Hassan, and Warren Lau will also be speaking.
Thanks, Kathy. Actually, if you go to the Let's Find Out episode 34, I think you'd like that a lot better. That one has Bobby Biswas, who started off like us, and then really, like, if you thought someone went off the deep end, he really went off the deep end. He's got these 4, I don't know, half-acre greenhouses. They look like big warehouses, each one progressively more and more ultra tropical. I think to the point where, how many did he have, John? Like 40 or 50 triple grafted durians, like 3 durian rootstock into one. He had some plants I'd never heard of before. Anyways, also to the online crowd, thanks for joining us, Bruce Blevin. I saw your name on there, and I'm happy to see that you could join us. We've done a few mango talks over the last few years, and some of the feedback we've gotten back was, this is great, fantastic information, but I'm a beginner. How do I start? And so we're changing things up a little, because out of like our friend group who grows a lot of mangoes, I'm the most beginner of everyone. And so this is really kind of my go-to guide and what I've learned along the way. And I've done this more like a calendar, so kind of like a month by month basic intro. And then Warren Lau is one of our good friends. He's got a tremendous amount of mango knowledge, and he brings a very highly technical background to the process. So if you just want a mango tree, you just want to say, I have a pomegranate, I have a fig tree, I have some grass, and I want a mango tree, save yourself the trouble. Just get yourself a Manila mango tree, maybe a Valencia Pride. You could set it, forget it, you'll get some fruit, you'll be happy. But this is what you get, right? It's hardy, so it'll survive your frosts, it'll grow, you can water it, not water it. Fungicide, no fungicide. Squirrel, no squirrel. This is kind of like, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I feel like this is almost like the benign cockroach of mango trees. Like, it's hard to kill. It'll always be there. It'll survive. The things I look for mangoes, we want things that are hardy, precocious, disease resistant. So Manila kind of checks all those boxes off. It's what I consider standard. So if you like the mangoes, if what you expect from a mango is what you get from the grocery store, this is for you. Same with Valencia Pride. Actually, Valencia Pride is a huge tree, big, has some beautiful red-green mangoes, but I still put it in that standard category. You know exactly what you're getting. Compared to, you know, this is my Manila mango. Without any effort, it's setting a ton of fruit. The pictures I'm going to show you are from the trees in the background, the trees next to it. All right, I have a kit. Kit makes some large late season fruit, kind of coconutty. You know, you have a panicle, no fruit. One fruit here. One lame fruit here is probably going to burn in the sun. This is PPK. This is a Southeast Asian mango. Phenomenal flavor. I don't think I see any mangoes in this screen. I think there are 5 or 6 on the whole tree. Right, this is the exact opposite of Manila or Valencia Pride. So these are from last night. So if you wonder why you haven't seen me around too much, it's my plant time is limited. I only get to do plant stuff at night. There's one daylight picture from here. and it's the one my wife took this afternoon. But usually I'm the midnight gardener. So a standard mango is one, like I said, that you expect from the grocery store. It's got a little acid, got a tropical taste to it. It's green, yellow, red. And this last part here, you got to get your floss out. It's got that stringy fiber to it. If you wonder why people put up with this, it's actually because it ships well. So mangoes that are really fibrous and stringy survive bouncing on the ground and travel really, really well. So the standard mangoes are going to be your commercial mangoes for the most part. So why do we make a big deal about having a mango talk, right? Why not just get a manila mango? Well, what you get at the store, pretty good. Bricks of 16, 18. This is like most mandarins. Most mandarins, if you like mandarins, are going to be in this 14, 16, and 8, bricks of 18. Mandarin is pretty sweet. And you got that unique tropical mango flavor, hard to replicate. But if you put in the time and effort, you can get some fruit that are out of this world. So the first sweet tart mango I tried was a Brix of 34. It was one of these like eye-opening moments. Kesar, which you could get at we're just about at the end of the Indian mango season, but even a low-end one will be a Brix of 18, and it really has kind of a nice rose flavor to it and a hint of this, I don't want to call it tropical, but a spiciness to it. Gary mango is very, very sweet. These are all completely fiberless. You can bite through them almost like a peach almost, just unique, consistent texture. Brix is a scientific measure, roughly measures the solid content. It's kind of a cheater's way of saying percent sugar. So the higher the Brix, the sweeter something is. So if you get a mango that is like a Brix of 12, you'll say, oh, this is a more. You're tasting more of the acid. It doesn't have enough sugar for you to try. Brix of 14, you'll say, okay, this tastes like a fruit. Brix 18, you'll say, oh, this is a good mango. So when you get into like Brix of 35, it's like a third sugar. Like it'll spike your sugar. I actually got a sugar monitor for fun. That's what I have here. I've been seeing what sets off my sugar, and when I try one of these mangoes, it just zips right up. But these are unique flavors. You get these not just because you could just add sugar to anything, but you get some unique flavors. A couple years ago, Starbucks got into trouble. This is maybe 5 or 6 years ago in the fall. They came out with like their pumpkin special, and they got in trouble because people were calling them out saying there's a tremendous amount of sugar in your drinks, because when something is hot, you can put more and more sugar in it and you don't really notice the difference. But it coats your tongue and changes the flavor of things. Well, this is what you get with some of these mangoes. Some of these have so much sugar, it alters the way you taste some of the other flavors. But anyways, you can get some alternate flavors. So Gary has some coconut overtones, right? Like when you try this, you'll say, I've never had a mango like this before, because it's not your standard tropical flavor. And I got to try this. I think is a Thai mango. Is that right? Thai, Southeast Vietnamese. I'm trying to remember. Very, very sweet, but it changes. The more you let it ripen on the counter, the more it becomes unidimensional and very sweet, but you get it a little bit earlier. You get this unique like Hawaiian punch kick to it. A few years ago, I went to the mango festival. I forget at the big garden down there. I forget what it's called, but a few mango experts were there. I saw Steve from Exotica Nursery there as well. That was interesting. But I copied this flavor profile. And this, to me, really highlighted the range of flavors that people taste. Like you can get like some dairy flavors in there. And I've definitely tried that when the mango's going a little bit off. You let it ripen just a little bit too much. To me, like if I taste like this cheesiness to the mango, I'm like, oh, I should have had it the day before. But you can, like, I've had jasmine in there. I've had orange, peach cobbler. I tried for the first time, I think 3 years ago at our tasting. I bit into it. I said, this is not a mango. This is a mandarin. I'm eating something that's firmly citrusy. So there's a tremendous amount of flavors that you will not get from your regular mango. So this is why we go through the effort. This is why we put up with this. So this got cut off, but this is 35.3, right? So our ideal mango has all the features that the Manila did except for the fiber. So it's fiberless, it's sweet, and we want, bricks that you can't get anywhere else. It's got these interesting flavors to them, and Warren will go over some of those. We'd like it to be disease resistant, but the truth is none of these are going to be disease resistant. Just about every special mango you are getting has been treated for fungus because mangoes are super susceptible to fungus. We want them to be precocious. The reality is a lot of these special types are not. And we want them to be aggressive growers. And unfortunately, many of them are not. So that's what we're working with. So here is my list of things to do. Many years ago, I was talking with Martha about the propagation committee. And in my mind, I had always wanted to know, what can we do like on a day-to-day, month-to-month rotating basis so that we're always doing something? And so I had this idea when putting the talk together, because my mangoes are really the only fruit tree I have that you can't set and forget it. You walk away, 2 days later, you get dieback. If you don't catch that dieback in a week, the tree is dead. Like this thing moves very fast. It dies. Once it gets to the main trunk, that tree is dead. So when I had, I think 6 years ago or 7 years ago, I had 30 mango trees. March, April, 10 of them died. Like it was like overnight they died. That's dieback. We'll look at pictures. There are some thoughts that it's a group of different fungi. Some people think it's a manganese deficiency. Some people think it's this multi-factorial thing. It's highest in March and April, but I saw like a branch last week, right? You walk around, you see it, one branch, few leaves that look like they're wilting. You wait a day, you'll see they're wilting more. That's dieback. And you look like a foot away or like a foot down, you see, oh, the branch is dead. So it's dying from the middle and then it's spreading in either direction. So you got to cut it out before it gets to the main trunk. And I'll show pictures. So the common theme for the first 6 months of the year, you have to protect against powdery mildew. You really don't have a choice because powdery mildew will destroy all your blooms. You can have some nice fruit set even. Your blooms can survive the fruit set and your fruit will die from powdery mildew afterwards. So if you want any harvest, any mangoes to try, you have to protect against powdery mildew. In January and February, you do have to protect against frost damage. Why? Because the damaged leaves will harvest powdery mildew. Dieback, you're also going to look for dieback year round, especially March and April. And then if you get this 3 or 4 day heat wave, late December, early January, even 70s or 80s, you'll end up getting swollen buds, which are nice, but they're likely to be flower buds. And flower buds are usually triggered after periods of rain or periods of cold weather. So, you get a heat wave in late December, early January, you've had some cold weather, you can trigger flowers. Flowers are nice to have. It's nice if you get them in January, you get them early. Like this year, I got them early. If you can preserve them, spray with, control for powdery mildew, you can potentially harvest your mangoes in June or July, during peak heat, peak sunlight hours. You got some very flavorful mangoes. February is kind of more of the same, except you're starting to get more likelihood of getting flowers to emerge. We're starting to come out of winter. And at this point, reasonable to start fertilizing. I fertilize my trees every 3 months, kind of like on a citrus and avocado regimen. Smaller trees, I give more nitrogen, larger trees, lower nitrogen. And then I try and add in some gypsum for calcium. And again, going back to dieback, I try and add some manganese. Manganese you'll find in a lot of micronutrient formulations for palm trees and tropical trees. So if you get like the SOAG, Southern Agricultural Micronutrient Package, they have a citrus package, they have a palm tree package. The palm tree package is the one that's going to have manganese in it. So we talked about protecting from powdery mildew. By the time you see flowers, it's too late. So by the time you see flowers, the powdery mildew spores have already invaded the flowers. The flowers will still open, they will still grow. It's just too late to save them. So you need to spray as soon as you see the buds swell. You need to spray, you need to control for powdery mildew before they emerge. I think Gary from Laguna Hill sent out something last week talking about powdery mildew. He recommends bicarbonate, baking soda. So you can use baking soda or you can use sulfur powder. You don't use the two together. Baking soda raises the pH, so it makes it inhospitable for fungi in one direction. Sulfur lowers the pH, goes in the other direction. Baking soda may be easier to spread because sulfur is a powder. You can either spread the powder around, or if you have a sprayer, you put it in, it'll be a big mess. You have to keep shaking it. But I use sulfur, yeah. So I use, there is no liquid. You can put the sulfur in liquid and it just goes straight to the bottom. You have to mix it, or you get an agitator or a pump. Some sprayers will have a pump built in, but I use sulfur. In March, this is when kind of the action starts, because if you have a tree, it's going to start flowering. If it hasn't flowered already, it'll start flowering in March. The things to look for are these early, mid, and late varieties. Once the tree starts growing and starts pushing flowers, it's going to do it roughly every 3 weeks. And so even if you miss the window on your first powdery mildew spray, you want to spray because more is coming behind it. And you really want to catch these flowers from March and April, because the mangoes will hang on the tree for 6 or 7 months. And so you want them to get as much summer development as possible. Oh, and how do we spray roughly every 10 days to 3 weeks for powdery mildew. So sulfur is more preventative. So if you have active infection, it's not going to do much, right? So you will have lost those flowers, but you're spraying for the next crop. I also add copper, so a second fungicide that'll kill the active infection. But again, the flowers that have already been infected, those are dead. Right.
Okay, so he mentioned about mixing this in water. So, you have certain amount of tablespoons per the directions of the chemical that you're using. A couple tablespoons per gallon. But one of the things that we've been doing this year is we're putting a surfactant in there. So it's kind of like dish soap, but I'll actually use the horticultural surfactant, about a teaspoon. That'll make this chemical stick to the leaves, especially on the undersides. And he did mention he's spraying every 10 to 3 weeks, but there's a clause on that. If it rains, you need to spray the next day. So that, because it pretty much washes off everything that you've had on before.
Yes, that's true. And the reason I put 3 weeks is I use a surfactant called New Film. New Film causes it to stick. I got a little lazy in June. I got a lot of fruit set, got a little cocky. I was like, it'll warm up, right? And then we had all this June gloom. Right? I get all this mist on my car in the morning, and all the powdery mildew pictures I'm going to show you are just from last night. Right? So powdery mildew struck. Thankfully, most of my fruit are big enough they can shrug it off now, but you will see the leaves that have sulfur still have sulfur on them, though, and they have kept those leaves protected, but the new panicles were affected. Horticulture, so surfactant. Surfactant is like something sticky that'll help the product stick on the surface. So when you spray, there are different things. The biggest thing is a surfactant, which helps smooth out the product so it's not so clumpy, and it'll help it stick so it'll last. There's something called a penetrant. So a penetrant is when you want the plant to absorb material. So if you feed the plant, you don't want the food to stick on the surface. You want it to penetrate the leaf. So you'd use like a penetrant instead. Have you tried using glycerin as your surfactant?
No, this is actually the first year I'm using surfactant, because where I live in Orange County, Northwest Orange County, I'm pretty close to the coast. I'm just having powdery mildew problems for like the last 10 years. So I've been trying different things. This year was the surfactant. You can use dish soap also, but it's got to be, yeah. The surfactant is the most expensive. I just tried it because it sounded the most professional. So I can tell you that this year was very tough. I have more fruit than I had last year, but it's not what I wanted. So there's something about the way I was spraying. Most of you probably use a pump sprayer. That's not what they actually recommend. They actually recommend using a fogger machine. So I bought one, a cheap one, a Ryobi Home Depot type, and I felt as though it was difficult to use. Like it feels like it's clogged or it doesn't have enough power to see the mist. It sprays like 10 feet, but then sometimes nothing's coming out. Khaled uses a real professional backpack sprayer. So he's really serious about it. And those things cost like $300 for the battery powered ones. You can also have one on a cord, but if you have a large property, a cord is not convenient. But going back to your question, I've never tried glycerin. I'm going to stick with the surfactant for now. It's a little expensive, but I'm gonna do it until I get more fruit and go from there.
It's to get all the water spots off, and it's pretty inexpensive. No, it's good to experiment. I like New Film because the brand is called New Film. New Film markets itself as being able to last twice as long as the others. So I've gone 4 weeks. That's about as far as I'd go because at that point, new stuff is popping through. But that's why I like it. But Warren's right. A couple of years ago, our group had probably the worst mango set ever. And then we'll get into some of the details, but that's when it was raining like every week. Like every week it was raining. And then, I'm spraying in the middle of the night. I get tired. I don't want to spray. Got to do all these things. And then it's just like, you skip a day, skip 2 days, boom, you lose it.
But nighttime is
So-
the time to spray. You cannot spray this in the heat of the day, like over 80 degrees. You'll burn leaves for sure.
So why go through all this, right? Why do all this in February? Because you got all these chemicals. This is probably the part that takes me as long to mix these as it does to spray them. If you just wait long enough, I said it'll flower every 3 weeks, roughly until June. You may still get flowers now. And, mid-June right now, this is when the June gloom ends. The powdery mildew kind of just melts away. So why do we fuss with all this? So yes, it is a huge pain to mix this, and you can keep it simple, just sulfur, copper, surfactant. You can buy ready-made mixes or you can mix and match like I do. If you wait until June, all this is true. You can outweight the fungus and try and play the patient game, but you're gonna get fruit that develop in June, which means your fruit's gonna ripen in December or January, and it may taste like a mango, but it's not gonna taste as good as it should. Let's put it that way. And realistically, all the big commercial growers have to spray. If you don't spray, you won't get a crop. I think this was my aha moment when I was wondering, why am I getting no mangoes a couple of years ago? I found African mango growers are spraying, Indian mango growers are spraying, Florida mango growers are spraying. You could do organic or non-organic, but if you don't spray, you're not getting a crop. So this is what powdery mildew looks like, right? So it's not what it looks like right away. You get a normal looking flower and it will set fruit. And soon after setting fruit, you get this gray-white discoloration. It looks slimy, but it actually feels more solid. And not only does it destroy your flowers, it'll also destroy the existing fruit. Some fruit can outmuscle it, right? But most of them won't. And this is just from last night. All right. So now, any sharp-eyed people can tell me the difference between these two? Besides, one has one and one has many. One was sprayed. Uh-huh. This one was sprayed, but this here, you see how these just kind of they look more dry or a little bit black, but they're not like jet black, because jet black will be anthracnose. You can have anthracnose destroy these. But these are flowers that didn't get pollinated or they got aborted. So this is not diseased. This is the diseased one. So the powdery mildew is pretty unique. It'll turn this gray-white color You have maybe a little bit here, but for the most part, did a good job with this panicle. And single fruit, this was probably wind pollinated. Insect pollination tends to be more in groups or clusters. So that was powdery mildew on fruit. Here's powdery mildew on leaves. You see that white powder? That's there. So this is frost damage or heat damage. Damaged parts of the leaves more likely to develop that. So what's the difference between these two? Any more sharp-eyed people? Not whitefly. That's my third son over there. Do me proud, Ismail. This one here. And this powdery mildew, how does it look? This is spread out. This is not powdery mildew. This is sulfur. This is a sulfur I sprayed 2 months ago on my lemon zest tree. It's still there, right? No powder, maybe a little powdery mildew at this dead edge right here. But otherwise, this sulfur is going strong. So that's the difference between them. So this is how it comes out. So this is sulfur that was sprayed in a pump with an agitator. You see, it comes out relatively uniformly.
You see the bottom picture on the left, or sorry, the left picture. You see how the powdery mildew is on the bottom of the leaf? That's why it's so important to have the surfactant. If you do not use the surfactant, it's not going to stick to the bottom. It'll just fall right off the leaf.
That's good insight. I post my recipe at the end. Warren has a mix of recipes as well. But yes, that's, I think, the last slide. So lemon zest, I mentioned lemon zest because amongst our friend group, lemon zest is like the unicorn. This is like the fruit that you might have tried once in a blue moon and you still talk about that, the one that got away. That's lemon zest. And I mention it because when we sold our grafted trees last year, I was surprised no one bought the lemon zest. I think I was told there were 4 lemon zest trees we grafted and there were still 4 afterwards. And I thought to myself, we probably scared people away talking about how disease prone it is, right? So we said, what? Oh, well, we'll talk about it. Lemon zest, notoriously disease prone, even amongst Florida growers. It was developed in Florida. It has a reputation for being hard to bear fruit because it is so disease prone. Does it have too many male flowers? No, but it is very prone to powdery mildew. My experience has been this is the canary in the coal mine for me. This is my first tree to flower. So usually, I'm not usually spraying in December or January. So when I see lemon zest flowering, it's already too late for me. And this one might only flower 3 times, beginning of February, middle of February, end of February, then it's done. So if I don't walk in the yard for 2 weeks and I miss the first 2 flowers and I spray it maybe too late for the 3rd set, I've lost all my fruit for the year for this tree. So lemon zest is very early, seems to have the fewest of these blooms. This is the one I have to try the hardest to get. So why put in the effort, right? So it didn't sell well. It is disease prone. Maybe some people like you asked, like, what is a lemon? What is zest? And why do I want that on my mango? And so it's really not known. So this is what Sumesh texted me this. So Sumesh was going to be one of our expert panelists here. Unfortunately, he's sick. This is a picture he sent me, and this was his message, right? The screenshot. 30 bricks, best lemon zest I ever had. He liked this so much, he planted this seed and named the seedling after, and 10 years later, we're still growing this seedling. Right? These are other quotes I've had. That one lemon zest we tried, you get something that tastes fantastic. We had at our mango tasting, but lemon zest could beat it, right? Or I'd wish we had some lemon zest to try. This is more kind of a remark about how hard it is to get it to fruit. This is my lemon zest from last year. It's actually a quite ugly fruit. It gets these blotchy yellow splotches on it. But this is, when I see this, I'm looking at this slice and I'm seeing this fluid, this juice is really thick. It's almost gelatinous. That's how thick, it's almost syrupy. And you know, when I look at this picture, I'm saying this mango looks relatively fiber free. I don't see any stringiness to it. Instead, I see these little grains almost, these little dots here. And this was it. This was 29.4 bricks. And then around the seed was actually 30.7. You know, you tasted it. I could tell the difference between a 29.4 and a 30.7. So no, try it again. This tastes even better than the last bite. In fact, you can see, there's the piece. Took just one bite. And then said, oh, now we got to test this. This was amazing. So this was this out of this world sugar bomb that had this weird citrusiness to it. You try, you say, this is not a normal mango, but you can't put it down. So that's why we go through the effort. And this is what my lemon zest looked like as of yesterday, right? Just a couple panicles just on one side of the tree, but so many fruit, and they're about golf ball sized. And this is with a regular spraying regimen. So an early and consistent spraying regimen is needed to control for powdery mildew so you can get fruit set on your tree and actually hold on to it. And at this point, at this size, these are big enough they should be able to shrug off powdery mildew. Anthracnose can still attack it, but you know, once we start to warm up, we're really out of the anthracnose. And then this is the late crop, right? What happens if you just wait until June? So you're not going to get lemon zest to bloom in June. But you get a lot of other mangoes to bloom in June. But if you get a June fruit set, right, it's not going to have enough time to mature on the tree. Or if it does mature on the tree, it's going to mature in November and December when you don't have peak heat and peak daylight hours. Or the tree's going to have a hard time maturing the fruit because it's going to try and shut down and slow itself down at that time. Or if you start getting an unusually rainy November, December, you're going to start, the fruit will split. So one way or another, you're not looking to ripen fruit in January. You're trying to get the fruit to ripen September or October. That's your goal. And to do that, you need fruit to hold from March and April. In Florida, this is mango season right now. Their trees bloom in January. So fruit also hang for about 6 months on the tree. They're just getting a 3-month head start on us. This is a nice, I took this picture to highlight the idea of successive crops. So this is the first bloom. This is like second bloom. And you see the little ones in the back. This is third bloom here. And when the panicle opens, it's like, I can't remember if it's top to bottom or bottom to top, but all the flowers are not open all at once as well. But this tree will most likely start to drop the small ones and some of the medium ones. So you should plan for fruit drop to happen in addition. Yes, Martha? The tree will thin itself out. The mangoes are notoriously, they're like shark mothers. I was watching Shark Week is coming up, and I have a baby who's really interested in sharks. Apparently, sharks make the worst mothers. They'll just swim, drop the baby, and keep going. And some of the babies, some sharks have 2 uteri because the sharks will eat each other in utero. But the shark will just have 2 uteri, drop both babies, and keep going. The mangoes are the same. They will not hold the fruit. If they don't want to, they will drop the fruit. And so some of our Indian friends and Pakistani friends will make Indian pickles. They make the pickles out of the fruit that dropped from the fruit, usually around this time period. So to highlight this idea of the poor tasting fruit, the June setting fruit, we got some data from our fruit tasting because 2 years ago, we had a lot of fruits that were lost during all that rain. We thought we were going to get nothing. Then all of a sudden we got a bumper crop in June, or bumper fruit set in June. And we were all excited because we were going to get something. And then we tried these mangoes, and then I got disappointed again. So I actually asked the PowerPoint AI, here's the data, help me put together this data so I can present it nicely. So it said in 2022, the brick scores were 15. In 23, they rose to 17. And in 24, we expect it to go to 18. You can't trust AI because I already told you we're shooting for mid-20s or 30s. 2023, I said, was the worst year. And we're in 2025. How can our projections for 2024, how can we still be projecting 2024? So it actually made all this data up. It didn't use any of the data I gave it. It just made this stuff up, including the picture. So all of that was completely made up by AI. So this is, I had to go back, and so my demonstration is not quite as nice. 2023 was a bad year. We had the heavy weekly frequent spring rains. We didn't really spray very regularly. This, we're still learning. We got our June crop. We were very happy about it. So this was after you get all that diseased wood. You cut out all the diseased wood, think it's a total loss, prune for next year. And instead you got flowers that emerged. And so we had a ton of mangoes come up, and then we did our fruit testing. So I tried to make this even, side to side. I forgot to write down the bricks, but I think this one won. This was first place, second place, third. No, this one was first place here. This one I want to say was high 20s or early 30s, but let's assume it's high 20s. In 2023, it was 15.2. We had an orange sherbet that was a late crop, is about the same. Valkyrie came in at 25.7. All right, you can taste this. You taste 25.7. This is candy sweet. This, average. Angie's another variety. You can see 8-point difference. Venus, this is not bad. Kesar, about a 5-point difference. So you can see everything has shifted. 22 is definitely a better year for bricks than 2023. These random ones that were high, probably ones that survived disease pressure. How about 2024? I actually missed this tasting, so I just secondhand, but saying sweet tart, high 20s. Orange sherbet, this one, mid 20s, another variety, high 20s. So the point is, if you're shooting for your June crop, you don't spray and you happen to get some fruit, it's likely to be very average. And if it's going to be average, you might as well just get it from the store, or like I said, just grow a manila tree. You'll be happy enough. In April, the goal in April is to have your tree look like this. All right, nice, perky, everything is pointing up. This has been pruned well, set up for success. Flowers are open. You don't see any signs of powdery mildew. That's what you want in April. Again, you always have to protect from powdery mildew. March and April, again, dieback can be year-round, but especially common April and March. This is where it's not just powdery mildew. Now I'm actively spraying other fungicides. So usually I'll do 3. The sulfur for powdery mildew, copper for powdery mildew and anthracnose, and then I usually add a systemic of some sort, but there are different ways you can do it. If you want to go more the organic route or not, there are different things you can do. Flowers will continue to emerge. Your early varieties will probably peter out at this point. And now I'm starting to add gypsum about once a month to try and enhance the sweetness and minimize some weird, funky things that can happen with mangoes called jelly seed, where it kind of ripens from the inside out. So the outside is good, but the inside is kind of soft and has some off flavors. Traditional wisdom says don't graft in April. As I've gotten more comfortable with mangoes, I've started to graft in April, knowing my success rate won't be as high, but at least the tree will have a head start for a month or two. If I graft in April, though, I do have to be aware that I may get flowers instead. And if I get flowers, I can't let a graft that small hold a 1-pound fruit. It'll just snap the graft, and next year I'll be back at it. This is what dieback looks like. So this is about 3 days after noticing it, right? It's otherwise healthy. This was green like 3 days before. And you just walk away because you're not sure. Is it dry? Is it not dry? If you look at other parts of the tree, you'll see, no, the tree's not dry. It's actually okay. But it just looks like it wilts just a little bit. And then within just a couple days, the whole branch is dead. If you look back here, the color's this is black. So the branch is died here. I had to cut it here. This is the same tree. This is the picture my wife took today. This branch was this. This is 3 years ago. So this variety is called Dot. Dot was named after Gary Zill's mom. I tell people this is like your fruit punch mango. This has a truly tropical taste to it. It's like if you took Hawaiian punch and mixed it with the mango, that's what it tastes like. It tastes phenomenal. May, You're still protecting from powdery mildew, but now you're looking for the small fruitlets, right? At this point, you should start to see some fruit set. You need to continue with your fungicide regimen, though, to continue to keep this. And then with Memorial Day coming, you need to start to be aware of heat waves. During heat waves, your tree will drop the fruit. You have to be careful with your watering. If you overwater, it will drop the fruit or the fruit will split. So you want to make sure that you maintain an even watering regimen. You got to plan it for the year because you got to plan for the July heat as well. So you don't want to just boost your watering all at once. You'll fix one problem, or you'll avoid one problem and cause another. June is probably the end of our fruit set. This is where I clean up the panicles. All those dried flowers, diseased or not diseased, I tend to brush them off. They come off really easily. Again, we're watering consistently. You may get something called mixed panicle. So usually when it grows, it's either all flowers or when it's hot enough, it's all leaves. But you could get a mix where it's flower alternating with leaves. And I find these to be kind of weird because they'll set fruit, but I don't think they really grow afterwards, right? Like you don't get any vegetative, they're almost like dead end pieces of growth. And then this is, if you don't want to do the early grafting like I did, this is a pretty good season for grafting if you can find the wood. The only thing is it's kind of hard to find sources of wood because I've had people ask me for budwood for my trees. And, you know, at this point, my trees are flowering or they're holding fruit. So I have to sacrifice the fruit if I'm going to get wood, which I don't want to do. And most of the Florida growers are neck deep in mangoes, so they don't really have time to get wood. But if you can find it, this is a good time to graft, just because it's not so hot yet. When you graft and you get success, that first week, the flowers are really fragile, so they can burn. So the heat wave we had a few weeks ago, some of my successful grafts just burned. It's one of the things that happens. Around this time, as the weather changes, on the same tree, you can have flowers and vegetative growth. And it actually takes a while for the flowers to push. So by the time your bud opens up and forms this full structure, it might have pushed a leaf right behind it or right under it or right around it. So not uncommon to see, like on this tree, this fully open flower panicle, which took about 3 weeks to develop. And then right behind it, same tree, just different branch, a brand new set of leaves that formed about 2 weeks afterwards. So you can get these in successive waves. When it gets hot, they want to grow and they want to grow fast. July for me is really the easy grafting month. Your trees are growing, it's hot. Mangoes love heat. They're kind of like citrus. They've got thick leaves. They don't need that much water. They're not like avocados, right? We tend to think of mangoes as being tropical, liking a lot of water, liking a lot of humidity. Treat them like citrus. They're a lot more hardy. They don't need that much water. The early leaves are soft, yes, but the later leaves are thick. They've got a waxy coat. They're a lot more like citrus than anything. You're looking for consistent watering, and they love the heat, so they will just grow. And when they grow in July, it's all leaves, which is really what you want. You want it to get big, strong, healthy, to set fruit down the road. I would start to prune if it's clear that you have non-fruiting branches and you want to shape your tree so it could flush 2 or 3 more times this year in the shape or direction you want it to grow. Same with August. Now this is what we call the copper stage. So the first flushes are this beautiful copper color, and it'll grow, 6 inches to a foot in a matter of like a week and a half. Like they grow in successive layers all at once. It's pretty amazing when it happens. But August to me is very similar to July. Again, the most important thing here is, especially if you have fruit, is consistent watering. So if you overwater, it will drop fruit. If you underwater, it will dry off the fruit. And that's, Martha, that's how it thins the fruit. September, where we're starting to get ready for the harvest, and we're looking for our final pruning. You can still graft in September, but my success rate goes way down. Even the last few years have been pretty hot in September. Success rate has gone way down. When I'm pruning, we're usually looking to prune to get kind of an upward growing tree. So I don't like the branches to be dangling, because what will happen is if it gets long enough, even if it's pointing upwards, The fruit are pretty heavy, a pound, 2 pounds, 3 pounds. It'll drag that branch down. As it drags it down, you have a lot of exposed wood. The leaves aren't shading the tree. And then you get sunburn. You get sunburn. Now you got fungus and powdery mildew and all these other problems. So you're better off structuring the tree nicely. And so we're looking to prune roughly every 12 inches to 1.5 feet in the staghorn pattern. I mentioned grafting success is still possible. And this is where I'm going to put a plug for the people who are going to provide the Scions, if you're interested. So I'm biased because they are my friends. I'm not selling anything, but I will say the Scions I've gotten from them, even in December, will take. I'd like to say this with avocados, freshness matters with avocados. Freshness matters with mangoes as well. Mangoes can be more hard. You can graft them a week later, but you get them early, you get a good quality Scions. It's very hard to fail, especially if your tree wants to grow. So quality rootstock, quality Scions. If you have good rootstock, good Scions, you can have poor technique and you'll still be pretty successful. Bad rootstock, you gotta have really good technique. Bad Scion, I've had Scions wait like a whole year before they're still green. And you kind of have to tinker with them the following year to see what's wrong. And I've had them take. So interesting stuff. So this is the pruning, right? So it gets leggy. This has been one push up to here. Then it has a cluster of nodes and another push and then another here. So this is like 3 successive pushes. So we want to prune somewhere here. Otherwise it's going to get long and leggy and it'll fruit maybe from up here and drag the whole thing down. So this is not structurally sound. The fruit-bearing branches will bend and then we'll get sunburn, we'll get damaged wood, and we're just in this never-ending cycle of getting good, healthy trees. So if you prune it, you head it. I don't like to cut. If you look closely here, this is where the cluster of buds are. If you cut right here, you get a bunch of branches growing all from that crown. They're all coming together. They're not staggered. It's okay, but it's a little bit weak structurally. So if you cut actually just under it, you get this, I don't know if you can see these swollen buds. You get this staggered arrangement of buds. I can get 3 branches now coming at different angles and different lengths. And this is more structurally sound, about 1.5 feet apart. That branch is going to swell, thicken, and can now balance fruit all the way around there. I like to do it below the crown. I have a friend who likes to do it just above, and he's more of an expert than I am, right? That's the plug I'll say for him. But you'll get them all, they'll all come out at the same area. So that's the thing I don't like about it. Whereas to me, especially some of the varieties I grow tend to be leggy. I don't know what's a better term for it. Long, lanky, skinny. And so they kind of push one way or another. The branches look weak. Even a year or two, they look weak. And I always think to myself, I wonder if I had just gone back and done it right the first time. You know, will it hold up better? Yes, Kathy? Yes, yes. And actually, if you watched it, Let's Find Out in 33. So Gary Zill, just we'll take a short for a second. Family of mango farmers. When he was a teenager or a young man, he took an interest in mangoes. Had a fascinating hypothesis that if you just smell the sap and crush the leaves, smell them, you can get a good idea of what the mangoes are actually going to taste like. And so his story is he planted 10,000 seedlings. I don't know if it's 10,000 over a period of years or if it's 10,000 per year over a series of years. But from there, he is still releasing new varieties. But at this point in his career, it almost seems like when I was talking with him, he was less excited about mango varieties and tastes and more about the shape of mangoes. So he seems to be more interested in developing a dwarf mango rootstock, which is, to me as a tropical fruit grower, is like the opposite. I'm not interested in the rootstock. I'm more interested in the fruit. But he's thinking of it from a practical perspective. How can I pack in as much fruit as possible in a small area? So this pruning really is an issue. And you want to get the tree, the big growers, they want to get the trees as small as possible while holding as many fruit as possible. So yes, long story short, bring the tree down so you can flower a little bit closer to where you want it. This is another one. There's a graft pushed, and instead of letting it keep pushing after it's about 8 inches, I cut it, and you can see it's now pushing new leaves from the sides here. You know, if I just let it grow and grow, one more push after this, it's going to just drag the graft downwards. Uh-huh.
When do you cut it? When it's still tender? What, you know how you
Oh, yeah. When I see it and I decide it needs to change, I do it then and there. Yeah. Because it'll still harden. It'll continue. You're not going to induce dieback from it. You know, some trees, like if you prune them at the wrong time, you know, the whole branch will die back. The mangoes, when they're growing, they want to grow. They're serious about growing, like a foot at a time, like a foot every few weeks. So again, this is the goal in April. So you're pruning so that when your tree flowers, this is what it looks like, right? We don't want drooping branches. You see all these flowering branches are going to hold fruit, droop just a little bit, and then keep growing. Now, I showed this picture not to show the variety of mangoes, although this is nice to see that you picked them green. But if you notice the dates, it's all October, right? So March, April fruit set, 6 months later. This is the basket that was at the fruit tasting from last year that I missed. So this is the goal. You want to get your fruit, have them be full size and ready by October, maybe November, right? So always looking for dieback, no more powdery mildew in October. This is where if you haven't picked your fruit, you can cut off your watering. You don't have to water anymore. Again, they're like citrus, they're a little bit hardy. And we're going to check on fruit maturity because they can ripen on the tree, but if they ripen on the tree, they can ripen unevenly, top to bottom, bottom to top. And then you can also get some weird flavors where part of it tastes good and part of it tastes weird. But if you pick it green and you let it ripen on the shelf or indoors, it can ripen more evenly all the way across. So we want to pick it when it's mature, not necessarily when it's ripe. So kind of like an avocado. Like if you leave an avocado on the tree long enough, right, can get really oily. I've had some rancid ones on the tree. So you can let it ripen on the tree, but in general, you pick it at maturity and you let it ripen on the counter. How do we know when it's mature, when it's ready? I used to hear this term, full shoulders. It needs to have full shoulders. I used to be, what are you talking about shoulders? What are you talking about shoulders? So I finally figured it out last year. So the mango should wear shoulder pads, right? So that's kind of what it should look like. Should have these little raised humps around the edges and have this nice full-fleshed figure. That's your mango should be wearing shoulder pads. Kind of like that. The other thing someone talked to me about, and a lot of people do this, and I found it works, is the bend test. So you don't want to be too aggressive with the mango. You pick it, you pull it hard enough, it'll come off. But you could palm it gently, just curl it 90 degrees or so. If that stem snaps off, you'll see the sap coming out of it. Usually the clearer the sap, the more mature it is. If it's more all white sap, there's more nutrition that was going in. But basically, it's ready. And if the tree is actually if it's really mature, you sometimes see sap going outwards, out the back. It'll actually drip down. So that's your bend test.
For the bend test, 99% of the time, the stem will be brown. That's also an indicator that
Oh.
it will come off easily.
Like watermelon. So mature does not mean ripe. Ripe does not mean mature. So pick mature, let it ripen on the counter. So this is these are some mangoes that I received. And these don't look like your store-bought mangoes. In fact, this ugly one here, these little black dots, that's anthracnose. So anthracnose doesn't just get the tree, it'll get the fruit, especially in more humid areas. And this will spread kind of fast, and it can just be on the surface or it could penetrate the fruit. Still safe to eat. You just want to catch it before it penetrates the fruit. This one was ripe. This tasted outstanding. But none of these turn red, orange, and they don't have to. Each variety, each cultivar is a little bit different. So you're not going to rely on color, trial and error. Usually 7 to 12 days after picking is when they will be ripe. In November, we have cut off our watering. We're looking to harvest any leftover fruit. Maybe your final batch of fruit. You're basically, once you've harvested the fruit, feel free to prune. So if you have fruit, but you want to prune, your fruit's not ready, I'd say wait for the fruit to be ready, then prune. But once you've picked off your fruit, you're then ready to prune and let your tree rest. And that's that. This is my spraying regimen. Everyone's got a different one. I picked this up this is not my original. This is what I copied from someone on one of the mango forums, and this works for me. I use a spreader sticker. I settled on this new Film 17, this brand, just because it seems to last longer. Things I spray just seem to last longer. I'd use the SOAG citrus, SOAG palm. These are micronutrients. So this has your boron, your manganese, the palm has manganese. So that's why I do half of the SOAG palm and half SOAG citrus. I add a little bit of seaweed. That's the only thing that I added that's different from the original recipe. Sulfur, I go a little bit heavy on the sulfur powder. And note, this is a powder. So this, if you put it in a spray tank, you put it in, it goes straight to the bottom. If you don't shake, you don't agitate, it will clog your spray tank. So it's kind of a pain to shake it and agitate. So the one I have has a pump in it. It just mixes it for me, keeps it in solution. Mine is a 4-gallon tank. It's a backpack sprayer. It's too heavy for I mean, I can carry it. It's just not fun to lift, go down, pick it up. So I just put it in a wagon. I drag the wagon around. So I drag the wagon with one hand and I spray with the other. The sprayer will go about 6 feet, and then I bought an extension. So it's like a telescoping wand. It'll go about 15 feet beyond that. So, but the longer it gets, the more wobbly it gets. So, but basically I could get in and around. Like I just, best effort. I try not to stress about the plants too. If you stress about it, you'll never get anything done.
You should wear a mask when you're mixing and spraying the sulfur for sure. Some of these you don't want to breathe in.
Yeah, so I have a full hazmat gown, and there's a picture of me somewhere on the internet where I look like a dressed up chicken. And there were some unflattering comments, kind but unflattering about my getup, but I'm still alive. I do. I do. But I got a lot of crows watching all my figs, and they poop liberally around everything. So I just wash in general, but
Don't want your mango to taste like fig.
no, well, no. I grow the mango because I want it to taste the way I want it to taste. Phytophos is a mix of phosphite, which is a systemic fungicide. I use an all-purpose balanced fertilizer in my foliar spray. I use elemental copper. You know, just fun fact, if you grow in pots, you can spray this around, you can paint it on the inside of your pots, and it will chemically prune your roots for you. So you don't get spin out copper. I think it's one of the copper hydroxide. The original product was called Spin Out. So you can't find Spin Out anymore, but you can find, it was made out of copper and you can make your own. But and then I use sequestering as iron. So I add a little extra iron. And then this is a shout out for our July 12. There's going to be an exchange, but there'll also be the rootstock sale and the Scion exchange. The Scion sale. Ashok, Frank, and I think there might be a few other people are willing to sell. I think it's $6 per Scion, and $7 if you want it wrapped. They do want notifications, so something will go out through the Sign Up Genius because we want to prep them ahead of time. Prepping is almost like pruning, where when we prune and you saw the swollen buds, that's kind of how we prep, except we cut off the leaves as well, so that the leaf ends dry off. So when you get something, it's not seeping water. And when the buds are swollen, that's when the cuttings are harvested. So they're swollen, they're full of nutrients, they're full of growth hormone, they want to grow. That's when they're at their peak. If you get dormant wood, you can still graft dormant wood, but sometimes the tree wants to grow and the wood doesn't want to grow. So it's nice when the wood wants to grow. Point being, we do need some sort of commitment and count for scions so they can be prepped. When they're prepped, you're going to have much higher quality budwood. And I'm going to turn it over to Warren. I know these are some of the varieties that I was told would be available.
Yeah. So most of these varieties here are grown in Anaheim or La Habra. So they are available in July. July is the one time that you cannot buy Scions from Florida because they're in the heart of their fruiting season, and the Tropical Acres Farms is which we buy our Scion wood for us mango snobs. They just don't sell in July. So they really only sell in April and May. They stop selling in June and July, and they pick up for one more month in August, and they end September 1st. So you can get these varieties from Florida, but as Khaled said, they're not as fresh. So he picks them on Sunday night, actually he picks them on Monday after you pay for it the day before, and then they ship it FedEx Air, and it gets to you by Wednesday. So if you think 3 days is bad, it's not as fresh as you'd like it to be. They only wrap them in a wet, moist paper towel. The ones you get here will probably be wrapped in buddy tape, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really good preservative for the Scion to keep moisture in. So that's why it costs a little more.
Actually the cost is Alex charges $625 or $650. That's Tropical Acres
And
Farm.
it's like
Ashok put
20 to
his at
ship,
six,
right?
and
FedEx
20 to
Air.
ship. So Ashok is doing his for, I think they're doing $6 and $7 if you want it buddy wrapped. But I think he plans on cutting it fresh that morning. But you can get yourself, and there's no judgment. Get it however you want. I put a plug in because I order from Florida all the time, and my success rate is pretty good, but the success rate I get from the local sources is much, much higher, and I can do it almost year round. Question? By wrapping what?
No.
I think that's a fantastic question. So can the rootstock confer some disease resistance? I guess it's possible, but I don't think so, because people have been grafting lemon zest all over different varieties, and the prevailing, reputation of lemon zest is I'd have no fruit. I got one fruit. I'm keeping this. I'm not selling this fruit. That seems to be the thing with it. I mentioned lemon zest for me because for me, like I said, this is the canary in the coal mine. This is what warns me flowers are starting. So like this year was an unseasonably warm winter. My tree started flowering in January, right? I did lose that for, I missed it in January, but February was still cool enough where I could still get flowers out of it. I got a second and a third, and I think I even got a fourth set of flowers from it. So, but I know because when I walk around the yard, I see lemon zest flowering. It's too late for that first set, but I know to start spraying everything else. And the benefit is, that was the highest bricks we had for everything last year. I think
So, yeah.
I think 30% beat everything.
Yeah. So disease is a function of the variety. So, they talk about lemon zest here. They haven't told you the one variety that tastes, it's almost identical to lemon zest that has better disease resistance, and it doesn't grow as fast. It's called orange sherbet. I know this because I tried it, and it's like, wow, this one actually flowers effortlessly, but lemon zest, which is actually flowering for me now, which is strange, I lose most of the crop. I think I have a 10-year-old tree, and it's only giving me 2 fruit. So remember, I live by the coast, right, or 8 miles from the coast, so I have a harder time. But I will tell you, a sister, orange sherbet, will be better for you guys in general. And we kind of know that, but we've only had it for about, 3 years?
Yeah.
We haven't had it long. So all these varieties, you look at these names, a lot of times when you look at this name, that's the flavor that is combined with the mango. Some of them you might not know because they're they're like Indian varieties that don't have that. But everything that Gary Zill created in Florida, he calls it by a name because it is very similar in flavor to that, along with the classic mango flavor. So Do you have any, these are, a lot of these varieties are Indian varieties that have a special flavor to them. We call it resinous, piney, or turpentine. So you may or may not like it. You know, I found that people either like it or they don't.
Grows on you.
It grows on some
I
people,
think
yeah.
I think it grows. Like if you, I find like my kids, so I have 7 kids, right? When they're little, they only want things that are sweet, right? They're very basic pizza, very basic burger, like burger with no lettuce, no tomato, right? Yeah. But as they get older, then they want a pickle here, they want an onion, they want a little more something. They get used to the flavor, then they want a little more pizzazz to it. That's what that Indian, when you hear Indian flavor mango, that's what that adds. It adds a little something extra to it. Sometimes it's a counterpoint to the flavor. Sometimes it's almost like a rosiness or to the flavor. But the Indian mangoes tend to have this seasoned.
I'll give you the flavor, right? So for
Ah.
half of the Indian mangoes, wherever you go, they have they have a resinous flavor, and you're saying resinous, that doesn't sound too good. So I tell people it tastes piney. Well, what does that mean? It's like, okay, it's like eating a pine cone. How could that taste good? You may not like it at first, but it may grow on you like it did with me. So
Yeah.
some of these varieties, they're called Indo-Chinese flavors. They're really strong to me, and they resemble the smell of the 1970s or 80s Raid ant spray. So I really don't like it. But that sweet tart that you see up there in the upper left corner has won every tasting for the last 5 years out of Bricks of 30. So I kind of said, well, I'll eat it, but that's not my favorite. But it always wins. But remember, your tongue, everybody's tongues are different. So to each his own.
To the beautiful lady right there. For 5 minutes.
Difference in the skin too. So I'm a fan of eating mango skin. I know you're not. And if it has an incredibly piney taste to it, it's too strong for me. But you can tell the difference from where the seed is to the skin. And sometimes it's if it's a little too strong, you can stay away from it. But it does give it that extra You know, like right now they have coffee with salted tops. You know, they just have something different. So it gives your tongue something different that's not all just sugar. So it's a little bit more complicated.
Or that's a nice way of putting it. It's kind of more complex. And just to go off of what Warren was saying, I mentioned lemon zest because again, lemon zest has the reputation of being so difficult to grow and fruit, even amongst the people who like this stuff. But I think with the consistent regimen, you can fruit it. Are there easier ones to fruit that taste well? Yes. So sweet tart, I think they're all children of PPK, if I recall correctly. But sweet tart, orange sherbet, they're kind of like orange sherbets. Maybe it does kind of have a strong orange component to it. Lemon zest, less orange, more citrusy, sour, but still very, very sweet.
Sweet
But
tart is different.
the sweet tart
Yeah.
different lineage.
Lemon zest, PPK. PPK is the parent of all lemon zest and orange sherbet.
Or
And then I guess Behl made Tango, and there's all these other ones,
Or-
E1 and you name it. La Habra Sorbete, they're all children of lemon zest somehow.
but you can get relatively more disease resistant versions of them. Coconut cream I put up there because it does taste like coconut cream. There's pina colada. You try a pina colada. The one I had was Bricks of 36, and it tastes like you're eating a pineapple coconut with a little mango thrown in. You're like, how did this happen? But it's there. But you know, some of these will be available. They're some of the most unique things out there. Sorry, I know you had a question.
Don't eat mango skin.
Or- So they are related, but if you're not sensitive, you are safe for it. But some people are sensitive. Or thanks for bringing that up. Details to come, but it's going to be in successive waves. So you sign up, I think per hour. I think we're going to have 3 shifts, like first hour, second hour, third hour. So yes. We'll send out the details, but it's not all come first come, first serve. This is going to be a sign up, and I think it's members only. Is that right? It's members only. And there's going to be a sign up to buy the rootstock. I'm not, those details will be worked out, but we will have some rootstock available.
Send out information
as
soon
well.
on that, but we only got about time for another couple questions. so
Martha?
let's do it then.
That you had listed there, those are all without fiber.
Yes, I think one of them may have very mild fiber, but essentially those are essentially all fiberless ones and top tier, top tasting ones. Some of,
Fiber doesn't count near the seed, okay? We don't count that as being fiber. So it's in the main part of the flesh.
Yeah,
Yeah, we grow mostly.
when I get all this fiber and all the way through the.
yes. Oh. Oh, great question. So there's an Indian legend. His name is Haji. I want to say he's in his 80s. And he's won like the Indian equivalent of like being knighted, basically. He's developed so many different varieties. I think he said when he was a kid, he grafted 300 varieties on one massive tree. So when you are multi-grafting, you do want to balance out growth habits. Something like coconut cream is long and leggy. Something like pina colada is short and stubby and will grow very slowly. So you just want to balance the growth habits. Warren's actually the expert on that. I tend to graft everything and deal with the consequences later.
The growth habits of all these mangoes, the ones that are in Florida, they're on the Tropical Acres Farms website. So you can find out what they are, find all the vigorous ones and graft them together, or find all the dwarfs and graft them together. But Tropical Acres Farms.
So for me, if you have the space, it's nice to be able to graft all one variety on one. So it makes pruning easier. You don't have to balance growth habits. You know when to pick it. You look like you can compare first crop, second crop, third crop. When you have different varieties growing, you do have to manage and balance them out because the tree will prefer one branch over another. And then one can start to shade the other, and then something can trigger dieback. And then all of a sudden, when you get a branch that dies back, for me, it really is, it's almost traumatic because it happens so fast. And if you think it's wilting and you write it off and you don't come back a day or two later to check, you might lose 4 feet, 6 feet. You might undo 2 or 3 years worth of work all at once. And so for me, anything that can avoid dieback is really the goal because the tree can survive. You can, train it to grow again later, but you lose the whole thing. It's a couple years worth of effort.
All right, Khaled, I think we're gonna have to wrap it up. Thank you and Warren so much. Terrific talk. So we have a raffle for some items on the front. We've got our tasting table and hopefully our guests can answer some in-person questions.
Oh, we took, I think, 3 of the rootstock. I want to say these were like the 3 runtiest rootstock. One is growing sideways. But I grafted 3 orange sherbet on them about 3 weeks ago. And so you can see in 3 weeks, one has started to push. It just started to push. And over the last 3 days, it's about 1 inch. The other one is just starting to break the buddy tape. So if you want to see, these rootstock are smaller than the ones we plan on having, just because I topped these, cut them back, so I can graft over them. So the ones that we're selling should have 1 more flush or a second flush on top of it by July. So this is just kind of an example of what we have and how you can graft onto them.